एक ओंकार सतनाम करता पुरख निर्भव निर्वैर अकाल मूर्त अजूनी सैभं गुर प्रसाद दुकालं प्रणासी दयालं स्वरूपे सदा अंग संगे अपंगं विभूते दुकालं प्रणासी दयालं स्वरूपे सदा अंग संगे अपंगं विभूते। वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह। How many of you would like to have a lot of happiness in your lives? Just a few of you? How many would like to have a lot of contentment in your lives? And how about both? Okay, good. So you've come to the right place. So I'm going to talk about something that can be potentially life-changing, and I think you will have a lot of fun while doing so. As you can see, my lecture is a different kind of a lecture. I don't have any slides, so this is going to involve a lot of participation from you. So are you ready for that? Yes. Okay, good. Well, not so good. I didn't hear a lot of people speaking. How many of you are you willing to participate? Okay, good. So the first thing I want to do is I want to acknowledge you for being here. And are you having fun so far? Yes. Okay. Now, it takes a lot of courage to take a look at your life and try to make some changes. So I acknowledge that you've taken this opportunity for being here when you could have been doing something else. And so I'm going to try with Guru's Kirpa to make this time that you spend with me as worthwhile as possible. So I'm going to do my best, but I want you also to do your best in not thinking about other things and putting your full attention to the topic that we're going to discuss today. And so that we can participate and learn from Guru Sahib, learn from some of the lessons that we're going to discuss today, and try to apply them in our lives. Are you all ready for that? Yes. Okay, good. Now, today's topic is Seva. And we'll discuss what is Seva, why do you do Seva, why should you do Seva, and what are the different types of Seva. However, today, before we talk about Seva, I need to set the context for why Seva is important. How many of you have done Seva before? Okay. Anybody not? I don't think anybody wants to admit that they haven't. Okay, so the proper context first is, what is the reason why Guru Sahib put so much importance on Seva? So, before we get into the topic of Seva, I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about Hame. I want to talk about ego. So let me ask you, when did ego begin? In your lives, when did ego first start? Okay, that's true. However, let's look at what Guru Sahib tells us. When did Hame begin? ठीक है, Hame वड्डा रोग है, but शुरू कदों हुई? शुरू कदों हुई Hame?
Hame तो मनुख नूं जीवन तो ही है. Hame तो मैं छोटा हुंदा खेडदा है, तो मैनूं ये Hame है भी ये मेरा है, ये मेरे खिडौने हैं. ये मेरा माता पिता है, ये मेरी Hame है. मैं लोकां नूं खाना है, ये मेरी Hame है. मैं दुनिया तो सब नूं सियाणा, ये मेरी Hame है. जे मैनूं किसे नूं तुरना पहना आ गया तो ये मेरी Hame है. भाव की Hame ही जिन्हों आपां कहने सारी बीमारियों की जड़. Hame नूं वड्डा रोग तां ही दस्सिया गया कि ये सब तो पहला इहो शुरू हुंदी ते इह तो ही सारे हुंदे. जे मैनूं हंकार है, मैनूं ये Hame आ भी मैं सब नूं सियाणा है, ਇਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਰੋਧੀ ਵੀ ਹੋਵਾਂ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਡੱਕੇਗਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਰੋਧੀ.
ठीक है. So Hame जड़ी है, Guru Sahib कहते ने, I mean basically given my lecture, but we'll talk about all these things. About what Hame is. I want to create the context for why do we want to do Seva. Hame Guru Sahib ने किया आनंद साहब दे विच जातिस पाना तां जम्मिया परिवार भला पाया अगे की आंदा लिव छुड़की लगी तृष्णा Maya Amar Vartaya. So, like, when we are born, as soon as we are born, Hame begins. Because our connection with our Master, with our Lord, the spiritual connection is lost, and Maya is now operative and is going to do whatever it can to take you away from the spiritual connection that you created, that you had with your Creator. So the job of ego, what is the job of ego? The job is to create a separate identity. Okay, the job of ego is to create a separate identity. Well, let me ask you, who are you? If somebody asks you that question, what are you going to respond? My name is Raj. Somebody asked me, my name is Ravinder Singh. Now, who's speaking that? Who is this Ravinder Singh? Who is this Raj? Who is answering this question? It's our ego. It's not our true self, it is our ego. I am Ravinder Singh. I am not a Kal Purukh. I didn't come from, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about my identity. My identity is, I am Ravinder Singh. And that's the job of the ego, is to create a false identity in myself. Hanji. Hanji.
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਸਿੱਤੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੇ ਮੈਂ ਵੈਸੇ ਮੈਂ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕਰਨੀ
ਹਾਂਜੀ
ਹੋਮੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕਰਿਆ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਨਵਤੇਜ ਹਾਂ ਤੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਨਵਤੇਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਨਾਲ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਜੋ ਆ ਉਹ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ
बिल्कुल ठीक है. I agree. My point here is though that when we say who we are, we're creating identity. But my name is Ravinder Singh. I'm not thinking about a Kal Purukh at that time. I'm talking about Ravinder. I'm talking about the person who I am. So that's the job of the ego. Yes. The idea the Guru Sahib has told us that we have become Singh, we have become Kaur, and that is a representation that it is going to take us away from the Hame, like Bhai Sahib said. The idea, that's the whole idea. Why do we not use our last names? Our last names are Singh or Kaur, is because Guru Sahib has said that one way to destroy your Hame is to create a connection with God, and Singh and Kaur creates that connection to God, to a Kal Purukh. So, but when we say, I am who I am Raj, I am Ravinder, I am Karam, whatever it is who is speaking, the entity who is speaking is the Hame, is your ego. So the job of the ego is to take us from this entity that we were part of, that was part of nobody, to become somebody. I want to be known as somebody. Okay? So take us from oneness to duality. In Gurbani, it's all talking about duality. It's creating a separate identity, and we are becoming separate from the source. A Maya jit har visre, mo upjay pao duja laya. Duja is the duality. Okay? And then Guru Sahib says, "Hoye kattar milo mere bhai, dubda dur karo devlai." So the way to get rid of this duality is to come in congregation, and just like you have. So the idea is that we are trying to control our ego. In Sikhi, Guru Sahib is telling us how to control our ego, how to get rid of our ego. So the ego's job is to destroy this oneness that we have with the Kal Purukh, and to create this new false identity. So if you want a blissful life, if you really want to have bliss, then we have to destroy our ego. And then when we talk about this, and we understand it intellectually, and all of Gurbani is all about destroying our ego. But how many of us have actually destroyed our ego? How many of us can say that I am trying to live according to the principles of Gurmat, live according to the principles of living a higher, purposeful life, and to destroy our ego? Because see, the thing is, the ego is very adept. It's very adept at asserting itself. Even when we're trying to do seva, ego will try to assert itself and to create that I am doing something. Okay? It wants to maintain that I am the separate self status, even when I am doing seva. So that's why it's important to begin with ego, with Hame. Now, ego wants to be important than anybody else. So this somebody, I want to be important than somebody else. What is an example of that? Give me an example of where this ego that is in me wants to be greater than another somebody. Yes?
When we had icebreakers, we all wanted to win and be the first person to get all the names
Yes.
on paper.
Okay. I am a doctor. I want to be a better doctor than somebody else. I'm an engineer. I want to be a better engineer than somebody else. See, that's ego speaking. And even though we may not think it, but we all strive for that, aren't we? When we are in school, I want to get a good grade. I want to get an A in the class. And somebody else is getting a B. I am better than that person in that class, right? So that's the ego speaking, that I am somebody. I am better than somebody. And that's what the ego's job is, to say, I am better than another person. Have you ever found fault with somebody else? Have you ever spoken to somebody and told them that you're wrong? Never? Have you ever thought why you're telling somebody that they're wrong? Just because they're wrong and I'm right, right? Yeah. But who's being right? That's the ego. Ego is saying, I am right, you're wrong. I am better than him. Okay? Now, yes?
What in a situation when it is true, like if somebody else is wrong?
Yes.
So, you know,
So?
I'm correcting somebody. So, is it still ego or?
Okay. Now, ego, what I'm saying is not that there's anything wrong with that per se. Okay? I'm just making a comment. I just want you to recognize who is the person who is saying that. Okay, when I tell somebody they're wrong and that I'm right, who is the entity that is saying that? And what am I trying to? Yes, you may be, when you have children, let's say you're correcting something that they're doing wrong. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. I'm not saying that if somebody is making a mistake, somebody is running out on the street, and you should not tell them that that's wrong. I am just making a point as to what is it. Just recognize who is this person who is asserting himself or herself. It's the false identity that this ego has created. Now, there are many different components, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on ego because we have to come to our topic of Seva. But there are three components that I want to talk about Home, about ego. Ego believes that who I am is what I have. And let me say that again. Who I am is what I have. We believe that having nothing is equal to being nothing. Okay, if I don't have something, as I mentioned already, when we were young children, these are my toys. This is mine, this is yours, this is mine, okay? When we grow up, our toys become bigger. We have better cars, we have houses. So our ego, the job is that the more I accumulate, the more worthy I am. The more I am who I am. So that's what we strive. I want to have a bigger car. I want to have a nice house. I want to have other people don't have. And what is this desire? This desire to accumulate things. Who I am is what I have. That's the first component of ego. But are you really happy when you do that? See, everybody wants more. Everybody wants to have the next best thing. Everybody wants to have more and more of these things. But does that really make you happy inside? Because see, the more you get something, people don't realize. They say, okay, if you're in a tough situation, you say, okay, well, if I could only get out of it, all I want is to be able to get out of this tough situation, right? But what happens when you get out of that tough situation? Something else comes about. You want something more. You say, okay, if only I can pass this exam. So we pray to Guru Sahib, okay, this big exam is coming up. My SATs are coming up. Please, I want to pass this exam. That's all I ask for is help me pass this exam. How many of you have said that before? Okay. Now what happens when you pass this exam? Does your ego get finished? Okay, then he says, okay, now the next thing comes up. Okay, please, now I'm going to be taking the MCAT for my medical. Let me pass this. Please just help me pass this examination. That's all I want. Just help me pass this examination. Then what happens? You pass this examination, then what? The ego stops? See, that's the job of the ego. You want more and more and more. It will never be satisfied. You want to accumulate more. If you have, let's say that you have a really good job, you're making $500,000 a year, and you have a nice house, nice car, are you satisfied? Will you be satisfied with that? It's okay. Yes, Guru Sahib, you've given me everything that I want, and I'm satisfied. I don't need anything more. How many people do actually say that? Then what happens? I have my Mercedes, okay? So I'm flying in my Mercedes, and then I look next door and it says, oh, this guy has a Rolls Royce. Maybe a Bentley. Yeah, Aston Martin. What about that? Okay, fast car. Is our desire ever fulfilled? That's the job of the ego. The job of the ego is to always want more and more and more. It will never be satisfied. It will never be happy. So that's the first job of the ego. Now, so what happens if you lose these possessions? So if the economy turned bad, right? So people lost their jobs. What happened? People lost their houses. There were a lot of foreclosures, so people are now no longer in their houses. What does that do to them? What does that do to their self-esteem? Anybody? See, what happens is that when you lose your possessions, your identity becomes threatened. You feel you're not worthy anymore. Have you ever got that feeling? If you fail an exam, what happens? Do you feel, no problem. It's Guru's Pada, it's okay. Something else will come up. Do you ever say that? Or do you become dejected and depressed? Oh no, I failed my SATs. I only got 300 on my SATs. So does that make you feel good about yourself? See, that's ego speaking. When you have more, you're not satisfied. When you lose something, you feel depressed or dejected. When all this Enron crisis happened and all these Ponzi schemes, if you've been following the news, did you hear about some people who actually became depressed or even killed themselves? Why? Because their self-identity, their self-worth was all in their possessions. They lost all their possessions, their self-worth went down into the dumps, and they didn't really feel that they had anything left to live for anymore. Okay. So even though we know that we came from nothing, are we going to be taking, you all know the story about that Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Sakhi about the sui, right? Are you going to, he said that all I want is for you to give me this sui in the next world. If you cannot even take a sui with you, if you cannot even take a needle with you in the next world, that means we came from nothing, we're going to go back to nothing. So even knowing that, yet we are all imprisoned by this ego. We have all this drive to collect more, to be more, to want more and more. Because our identity is ruled by this ego. Okay. Now let me ask you. Think of somebody who has a lot of joy in their life. Do you know of anybody who you think has a lot of joy in their lives? Yes. You. Okay. Who else?
Oprah.
Oprah. Have you seen children play? Have you ever seen children who are unspoiled? I'm not talking about spoiled, rich brat kids. Have you ever seen unspoiled children play? Are they really interested in accumulating things? Are they present in the moment? They're playing with a cardboard. For goodness sake, they're playing with a cardboard and they're happy. Okay? So what is it about joy? It does not come from having all this wealth. So that's the first job of the ego, is what I do or who I am is what I have. The second job of the ego is who who I am or what I am is what I do. So if you're not collecting things or possessions, it's about what you're doing. I talked about me being a doctor, okay? I am a better doctor than somebody else, okay? And so we learned that doing things, especially if we do better than others, we feel that that is rewarding, right? If I'm better than somebody else, I can do better things. If you feel rewarded, isn't that right? Okay, now, so we become not human beings, we become human doings. We're all doing things, we're not being an expression of Akal Purukh. We're not being who we really want to be inside, our true self. We're always doing something. And we learn this at a very young age. When you do things, you have value. You clean your room, you get a reward. So when you're doing something, you get rewarded for doing all those things, right? So we learned this at a very young age, that the better you do things, the better it is for your own self-esteem. That's what we are taught, and that's what we learn. And when we grow up, that's what we do. We want to do better than somebody else. Now, I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm just explaining what is. Okay, just recognize it, and I'm not saying that Guru Sahib is saying you should not be doing all those things. But I just want you to understand who is the person who's doing all these things, and we'll come to what should we be striving for. So the ego's message is what you do is what you are. But that's not true though. You are not what you do. Okay? Now, if you never did anything in your life, would you still have value? If you never did anything at all in your life, would your life have value? In Guru Sahib's eyes? Akal Purukh's eyes? Now, I'm not saying that you should not be doing anything. Guru Sahib has said, Ek Pita, Ekas ke hum barak. So all human beings we are all God's children. It doesn't say high or low. It doesn't say that we are some are higher, some are lower than others. We're all at an equal level, according in Guru Sahib and Akal Purukh's eyes. It's not about doing things. It's about experiencing things. It's about what are you really experiencing inside of you. So when we're doing Seva, we are taught that we should not make any distinctions, right? Manas ki jaat sabha ek hai pehchan wo. It doesn't qualify that statement. Recognize all human beings as one. It doesn't say except in this instance or except in this. It doesn't make any distinction about high or low. So it's about being, it's about experiencing, it's about not having any judgment about anything. Okay. So let me give you an example. How many of you know Bhai Ravinder Singh ji? Okay, so let me ask you a question. What possessions did he have? Did he have any possessions? I think he had a house in Ludhiana. A very simple house. Okay. So he was not attracted to possessions. He did not really accumulate things. So let's talk about other things. How well educated was he? Did he receive any higher secondary school, any college education? No. Okay, then you could say, well, yes, in those days you can always come up with different excuses. And he said, well, he became a ragi. He was by profession a ragi. So okay, so he did not need a lot of education. There are lots of ragis who don't know didn't have any formal education. Now, so even if he was a ragi, how many rags did he know? Can you think of other ragis who know better rags than Bhai Ravinder Singh ji? Yes or no? It's a simple question. You heard his kirtan, right? And you heard a kirtan by other ragis. How many other ragis know rag better than Bhai Ravinder Singh ji? Many. So when you listen to his kirtan, it's not about rags, it's not about having the best tunes, but not having any of these things. So according to worldly parameters, he he was not successful. He didn't have a lot of possessions, did not have a car, he did not have a big house. He was not very well educated, so he could not say, well, I'm better than somebody else. Even in his profession, he did not know, according to worldly standards, he did not know all the tools of his profession. However, there was something else that made him stand out, right? Why do we respect him so much? It's not because of all the different things that he had or did not have. It's because who he was being as a person. Let me give you an example from his life. One time he came to stay with us in Los Angeles and he needed to have a surgery, a minor surgery. And in his pocket he had about a few hundred or $1,000. And he spoke to my dad and he said, okay, I have this money. This is Sangat's money. I want you to keep it. Because who knows, when they put me under anesthesia, and who knows, I may leave this world. You never know what may happen. And if I come out of it, I'll take the money from you. But I don't want you to give this money to my family. This is Sangat's money and it should go to the Sangat. So he did not have any attachment to anything. He did not have attachment to money, to possessions, to education, to anything. But there was something in him, and we'll see what that thing was. What was a spark in his life that kept him going and garnered worldwide respect? Do you realize that? I think he was the person that I know of who was the most traveled human being on this planet. And he would travel first class. How did he manage that? Things just came to him. You see, when you are attracted to possessions, possessions will run away. When you're not attached to anything, when they say that Maya Charnani Dasi hundi hai, it's about who you are being, and then whatever needs to be done, it happens for you. Okay. Now, so by destroying our ego, we become human beings. He was living in Akal Purukh's Hukam. Okay, now, so, am I saying that you should give up ambition? Am I saying that you should not do all these different things and sit at home and do nothing? Hold that thought. We will come to what exactly am I saying about that. Right now, it's all about just what is ego and how does ego prevent us from doing something. Okay. The third component of ego is that what I am is what others think of me. How many of you really want others' praises or their, praises basically. It's like, I am doing things and you get recognized for what you're doing. Even when we're doing Seva, we want people to recognize us. Oh, dekho ji kitna pyar wala bacha hai, sari raat seva karta raha. What happens with that? It's like, okay, yes, yeah, well, we may not say anything, but inside, yeah, that's me. Right? Has anybody ever thought that? When you're doing kirtan, it's like, oh, dekho ji kitna sona kirtan kita hai, bache bada shabash hai, bada sona kirtan kita hai. And you're saying, yeah, that's me. Right? Okay. Because our value is now, and if somebody doesn't say something to us and says, man, I spent all that night doing Seva and nobody even said anything to me. Have you ever thought about that? Tell me who has never thought about that way. Okay. There are few of us who are self-realized in this, that's good. But see, that's what the third component of ego is, you are what others think of you as. Okay, I won't spend too much time on this, but self-esteem should not come from other people's recognition of you. It has to come from inside of you. So, should you be concerned about your reputation? The only person you should be concerned about your reputation is who? Yourself, and who else? Guru. You should not worry about recognition from outside, because they're all involved in ego. It's all a transaction. Nothing is is without any outside recognition. So it's all about, you need to worry about recognition from yourself and from your guru. Now, so why am I spending so much time talking about ego when the talk is about seva, or selfless service? What is seva? Selfless service. It's about why we do seva. See, it's very important for you to understand why we are doing seva. There are many different kinds of seva that you can do, and we will talk about different kinds of seva in a little bit. Myself and Bhai Ravinder Singh will talk about different kinds of seva. But see, it's about why we want to do seva, and that's very important. If you don't understand that, then we're not going to be doing seva the right way. Unless you address why you're doing something, the what you do and how you do it does not really matter too much. So you could be washing the floors, but if you don't know why you're doing this, and if you become egotistical about it, then there's no reward you're going to be getting from doing that seva. Although you should not be expecting any reward, but the point is that why you do seva is more important than what you do and how you do it. That will come. So the answer to the question, what type of seva should you do, is not as important. And a simpler question to answer than why are you doing this or that type of seva. And actually, if you don't understand why you're doing seva, seva can actually become a hindrance in your own personal growth. Because if you're doing seva to get some recognition, all it is doing is it's keeping you in. You're feeding your own ego, you're not destroying your ego. And we need to find out, we will discuss why we need to destroy our ego. And we will talk about that in just a few minutes. In talking about building context, let me give you another example. If I had let's say, a big piece of wood here, let's say it's about 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall and about 20 feet long. And I had this piece of wood lying outside the Gurdwara here on the floor. And I asked you to walk over it. How many of you would have difficulty walking over it? It's not a trick question. It's a big piece of wood lying on the floor on here. It's 4 feet wide. And I asked you to walk over it. Walk on the piece of wood. How many of you would have difficulty walking? Almost nobody. Okay. Now let me change the context. Same piece of wood. It's now it's about 10 stories high and it's in between 2 buildings. Same piece of wood. Now how many of you would think twice about walking that plank of wood? Why? It's the same piece of wood. The same piece of wood. Why? It's a potential danger, right? Okay, now, let's change the parameters again. What if that same piece of wood, the same 10 stories high, in the next building? By the way, how many of you have younger brothers or sisters? Okay. How many of you have children, young children? Okay. Now, let's change the context. In that next building, the next building is on fire. And your 2-year-old brother or sister or son is trapped in that building. Now, how many of you would have difficulty walking across that plank of wood? See, the context is very important. It's the same piece of wood. Nothing has changed about that piece of wood, but the circumstances have changed. And depending upon the circumstances, you will do something or not do something. That's the why. See, the what and how. What is walking the plank? How is, well, you know how to walk. Okay? The only thing that has changed is why are you walking on that plank of wood? So unless you understand why you're doing seva. Now, let me give another example. How many of you made some New Year's resolutions? What resolution did you make? Yes. Be a better person. Okay. Anybody else? Who else raised their hands? Okay. What did you?
Do mind about what I do.
Mind your own thoughts, okay? Anybody made any resolutions about quitting a bad habit or doing something or waking up at Amrit Vela or studying hard or breaking a bad habit? Anybody did that? Okay. Now, how long did that last? 2 months? That's a long time. See, the thing is, that's another example of when we decide to do something without the right context. So we say, okay, I'm going to wake up at Amrit Vela. But we don't really understand why do we want to do this. I mean, we intellectually understand, yes, Guru Sahib said I need to get up at Amrit Vela. But it doesn't become, the desire is not that burning desire, same kind of desire as when you have your brother in a building that's on fire. It's not that kind of desire. If you had that kind of desire, no matter what the circumstances were, you would wake up at Amrit Vela because your desire was strong. The why you're doing something is much stronger than your own ego. You understand that? So the same thing in Seva. If you don't understand the why, if you don't understand why you're doing it, and if that desire is not as strong as the burning building and saving somebody from it, then all the seva you're going to be doing is bits and pieces here and there, and it's not going to do what the seva is designed to do, and that is to destroy your ego. Okay, we will do seva when we have a Sikh student association meeting. Let's get together at the Gurdwara and let's do langar seva. Okay, so fine, everybody gets together and does langar seva once in a year. And what do you get out of it? And so then you get, oh, bachya ne badi seva ki hai, unhonu sare bache ikathe ho gaye. Yes, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but you think about it for yourself. Are you really doing the right kind of seva? Are you doing it for the right reason? And who are you feeling inside when you're doing that kind of seva? Okay. Okay. Now, so if this is, we said, with a desire to accumulate, a desire to be better than somebody else, or desire to be thought of as somebody. If this is not important, then what is important? What is it that you should be striving for? Because these are all components of ego. Now, yes?
If ego is so strong, why do people praise other people? You know what I'm saying? Because if they were so egotistical, why would they want to say good job to someone else?
So then that person could think that they're a nice person.
Yeah. True, but if you have so much ego, then you wouldn't want to say that. You would want to be better, so you wouldn't say anything.
Right? But see, that's why, I mean, this is what, I'm not giving you any answers here, okay? I want you to start thinking of, and like I said earlier, it's not about what you do, it's why you're doing it. And so as long as you're aware of why you're doing something, that's more important. And then you start questioning yourself. Stop looking at other people, what other people are doing. You need to look inside of you as to why you're doing certain things. Okay? That's important. You need to understand the reason why people do things and why you need to change. Because all the world is full of ego. I mean, that's why Guru Sahib came to this world, is because he saw that everybody was being destroyed by his ego and he wanted to get us out of it. Okay, now. So if these are not all the things that are important, and what is important? You all heard of Auschwitz, right? What was Auschwitz? A concentration camp where the Jews were exterminated, correct? There was a person, he was a Jewish psychiatrist, his name was Viktor Frankl. And he actually was at Auschwitz. But because he was a physician, he had certain duties that gave him some standing in the camp. Because when people would get sick, then they would get him to help out. And one thing he realized, and obviously he survived the concentration camps, and he came out and wrote about his experiences and wrote a book. I'll give you the name of the book in just a second. And one thing he realized at that camp was that he said, what is it that made some people totally give up their life and they kind of just withered away now? A lot of people were just killed by the Nazis and nothing could be done about them. But there were lots of other people who just kind of gave up on life and just kind of withered away and died. And there were other people who actually survived. And he wanted to find the difference in people who survived versus people who kind of gave up on life. And what he came up was, and the title of his book is Man's Search for Meaning. See, what we want, if deep down inside, what everybody is really looking for is to be able to make a difference in people's lives, is to have meaning to your existence. So if you're not driven by ego, if you're not driven by possessions, if you're not driven by other people's recognition, what is it that you really want? What is it that your true self really wants? Is to be of service, is to have a meaning for your existence. If you really think about it, whenever you did something that helped somebody else, inside you felt good about it. Or not. Have you ever had that feeling before? Anybody? I mean, maybe you haven't experienced that yet. But this is what people want, is people's desire is to have their life mean something. Okay, now, so if you don't want to follow your false self, your ego, what should your life be like? Now, how am I doing on time? Okay. Does people want to have a 15-minute break and then we continue, or we want to just continue with this for now? Continue? Okay. Okay, let me just digress for a second here. This is about living a life full of purpose. Now, if you're doing something, let me draw something here. Oh, well, let's forget about that. Okay. Now, we are the components of our existence, of who we are as people. We are made up of our physical body. We're made up of what else? What's inside of us? Okay, that's the physical body. What else is inside of us? Mind. What else? Soul. Spirit. What else? What do we experience on a day-to-day basis? Emotions. So we have four components of who we are. We have our mind, we have our spirit or soul, we have our emotions, and then we have our physical existence. And all that we've talked about, see, ego is all about the physical existence. It wants to have a false self. It wants to have this identity that's a physical identity out in the real world, so to speak, right? So it's all about who we are in this physical existence. And if we don't control that physical existence with what's inside of us, see, we all want a purpose. We want to have a meaning in our life. And what we have discussed so far, what we want is what we have been driven so far is ego is driving the mind. Is ego saying, okay, you will have purpose if you have this much wealth. You will have purpose if you are recognized by somebody. Why is there so much in Hollywood? Why is there so much glamour and so much people want to be known, who want to have fame? It's because we feel that our purpose is in that fame. We feel that our purpose in all these possessions. But if we really look inside of us, because we already discussed that does not satisfy our soul, that does not satisfy the longing to have bliss and peace inside and happiness. So where does real happiness come from? Real happiness comes from really looking at what drives us, what is the purpose. So turning our attention not in the physical body, but into our mind, into our spirit. So what does our spirit want? What does our soul want? Now everybody has some talents. There are some things that you do that are better than anybody else. Okay, those are God-given talents. Like some people, they're good musicians. Some people don't have any musical ability. So you have certain God-given gifts to you. So your purpose is hidden in those gifts that you can utilize for the betterment of humanity. So if you've been given the job of being a doctor and you really enjoy that and you're really helping patients, that's the way you want to help humanity. That's going to give you your purpose in life. But if you look at your ego and you decide that, yes, I'm a doctor, but all I want is to collect more money and have more, see as many patients as I can, so I can collect more money from the insurance companies or from the patients and get a big mansion and a big, cars and things, other possessions, then we are subverting the purpose that God gave us of being a healer, of help to humanity, and we're subverting that into becoming a subordinate of our ego. So if we went back into our purpose and we looked at what is it that all these gifts that God has given us, how can we best utilize them for the betterment of humanity, that gives us our purpose of existence in this life. Understand that? Okay. So meaning in life, meaningfulness, it only comes when you are of service to somebody else. So your life will have meaning. You will feel internal satisfaction, contentment when you are of service to somebody else. So since we don't get to keep anything that we accumulate or accomplish, the only thing we can do with our life is to what? To give it away. What do we give away? We have a talent, we give away our talent. There's somebody who's hungry, we give them food, we give it away. Somebody needs help in crossing the road, we give away our hands and our feet to help that person across. That gives our life meaning. So if we're always thinking about, Seva is not something you go to a Gurdwara and do only. That's part of it. But Seva is how you think, how you live, how you breathe every day is about Seva. If you're conscious about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis, if you're conscious about how you're living your life, then every act that you do is full of Seva. You get up in the morning, say, we'll talk about Seva, what you should be doing. But when you go to work, you see a beggar on the street. I don't think about whether that beggar is deserving or not. Where you say, well, he has 4 legs. Why can't he go? I mean, he has 4 extremities, 2 arms and 2 legs. And, there's no obvious deformity. Why is he begging? He should go get a job. What's wrong with it? I have a job. Why can't he go get a job? It's not our place to judge. Okay? Guru Sahib, Akal Guru doesn't judge. And there are people who are the worst people in humanity, and they have big mansions and they're enjoying their life, so to speak. We think so. Does God really care who is giving more money to? No. So why should we care? If we want to become one with God, we should not be judging people. Are they worthy of my seva or not? Because what happens when we say, are they worthy of my seva? Who's speaking? Okay? And if I want rewards, I'm going to give you this if you do this for me. Is that seva? That becomes a transaction. So when we talk to Guru Sahib, we say, okay, if I do this, what will you give me? I mean, we always have this idea, I'm doing this seva, and Guru Sahib didn't give me anything in return. Don't we have that sometimes when we have that little feeling? मैं नहीं सेवा की थी, हमने कुछ मिला ही नहीं. Yes.
बेनती करने से कितना सेवा करते हैं अपन गल की ईगो तो शुरू कि अहंकार है ना. तो जब सेवा करते हैं अहंकार ही होता है. जितना मैं कोई शर्ता, मैं कोई प्यार था किसी की मदद करती, तो ये आ गया कि मैं मदद की थी, दूसरे ने की.
हाँ जी.
जिस तरह मैं बाणी पढ़ ली, जल्दी सा पाठ कर लिया तो मान जाएगा यार तू तो पाठ करता है, दुनिया तो उतना करी सकती. जिस तरह कि चोर की अहंकार कर लो कि मैं चोर है, ठग की अहंकार करूँ मैं ठग है, जब अहंकार करूँगा साथ ही करूँगा मैं साथ.
I agree completely. See, that's the dilemma of ego. See, that's ego. See, when does ego assert itself? Ego asserts itself when it realizes it is being threatened. that we're doing something that will eventually destroy the ego. So ego is very adept at asserting itself when you really want to destroy it. It's self-preservation. So ego is going to raise its head a lot strongly. The voice will be a lot stronger when you're trying to destroy ego. So when you're trying to do seva, that's when hankar comes. When you're doing Nam Simran, that's when hankar comes. Because the ego is afraid that if you keep doing it, that its entity is going to be destroyed. So it's going to do all it can to not let you get to that level. Okay? So how do we do that? So that's the dilemma. And how do we solve this dilemma? So one way is, what Guru Sahib has given us the method. So we say, okay, so we come to Guru Sahib, we ask, what is the reason, how should we do this? How should we destroy our ego? How can we get inner contentment? How can we get satisfaction? How can we get meaning in life? And Guru Sahib has said, do seva. Now, seva, a lot of people do seva. There are Christian missionaries who are doing seva. Mother Teresa did a lot of seva. There are many other beings in the world who are doing seva. And that's fine. But Guru Sahib has given us, it's not just the physical seva that you're doing. Asli seva kehdi hai? The real seva is, there are two types of seva. One is seva of Akal Purkh and seva of Akal Purkh's humanity. It's all one. We're focusing a lot on humanity and we sing Dinidji Seva Karo. See, when we start doing seva more and more, ego will come. But the more you do seva and we try not to get recognition, and we try to, and how do we do that? Is by always praying to Akal Purkh. And so Guru Sahib has given us the method. Said, Asli Seva kehdi hai? Guru Sahib da naam japna. Asli Seva is to remember God. Okay, that's why it's imperative that, and so there are certain characteristics that you have to imbibe in yourself before you start doing the seva. And that one of the characteristics is, the first is to do seva of Akal Purkh. And seva of Akal Purkh is that you get up at Amrit Vela and do Simran. So the more you do Simran, the more you meditate, the more that is going to help you to kill that ego. If all you're doing is just physical seva, it'll take a lot longer for you to get to reach that state. If you combine the physical act of doing seva and with meditation, with doing seva of Akal Purkh, then that path becomes a lot easier. Because what you're doing is every morning you're getting up, you're praying to Akal Purkh to give you strength to do seva, and you're doing Simran. And Simran is going to help you to control your ego. So that's why it's very important. The context of doing seva is very important. Yes, you'll hear people coming that they need help in Haiti. There's a lot of devastation. Nothing wrong with going to Haiti. But you have to examine, why do you want to go to Haiti? Do you want, it's like, okay, I'm going to do seva in Haiti. I'm going to take time off from school, and I'm going to take time off from work, and I'm going to go, and I hope that they will be giving me, they'll be providing tickets for me to fly there, because I'm going to do seva, so they should provide me with tickets to go there. You see what I'm saying? See, you're trying to do something good for humanity, but that's when the ego is coming up, and you are saying that I'm going to Haiti. And when you come back, yes, ਅਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਗਏ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਹੇਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨਾ ਕੰਮ ਕੀਤਾ, ਅਸੀਂ ਇੰਨੇ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ help ਕੀਤੀ. If that's the way you're going to be going to Haiti and doing seva, then rather not go there. Because the purpose is to do seva. Guru Sahib ने ਦੱਸਿਆ कि humanity ਦੀ सेवा करनी है. Wherever you see injustice or wherever you feel that humanity needs help, that's our duty. साडा धर्म है कि we have to go and help those people. But that's not the main reason why you do it. And you have to control the ego. So seva, you have to inculcate certain habits before you do seva. We mentioned ego is going to sabotage this one way or the other. So seva of Guru, you have to have humility, and this is where I want to go over a shabad of Var of Bhai Gurdas ji. Now this Var is not about seva. It's about who you are as a person. And I'm sure you've read this Var many times before. The Var is Pichal Rati Jagna, Naam Daan Ishnaan Ladai. So Bhai Gurdas ji is saying, so this is the characteristics of the person who is going to do seva. Wake up in the early hours of the morning, meditate, become alert for the day. Mitha bolan, nev chalan, hathon de ke phala manaye. Speak sweetly. See, pay attention to these. This is a very important shabad, and if we actually listen to the words and try to inculcate those habits inside of us, that will go a long ways towards helping us destroy this ego. Mitha bolan, niv chalan, hathon de ke phala manaye. Speak sweetly, move humbly. Give of yourself for the well-being of others. Thoda samna khavna, thoda bolan gurmat paye. Sleep, eat, and speak only when necessary. How many of us do that? This is the way of the godly person. Kaal khaye sukrit kare, vadda hoye na aap ganaye. Earn an honest day's labor, perform good deeds, and though being great, never get your greatness noticed. So this is what we're talking about, ego. Saat sangat mil gamde, raat ne hai, nit chal jaye. Daily attend the holy congregation where gurus and God's praises are sung. See, when we sing, why do we do kirtan? Why do we sing Guru's praises? It's because we want to inculcate those habits or those qualities that Guru Sahib is telling us that we need, that Akal Purkh has. And so when we say Ekonkar, Satnam, Karta Purkh, Nirpo, Nirvair, Akal Murat, Ajuni, Savam, Gur Prasad, these are all the attributes of Akal Purkh. Now, that's fine. Intellectually we know that. But how is it going to change our life? Unless we inculcate those same qualities in us, we become Nirvair. We become Nirpo. Okay? Unless we inculcate those qualities, that's why Kirtan is important. That's why Bhai Gurdas ji says, okay, we need to constantly come into the congregation of Sangat and not just sing a Shabad because it's a nice tune and you like the Kirtaniya, but really understand the message of Gurbani, of how you need to become humble and how you need to become sincere and how you need to conduct yourself so that you can achieve the goal. Shabad Surt Parcha Kare, Sadgur Parcha Man Parchai. Keep your consciousness merged in the Word of God. Very important. Keep your consciousness merged in the Word of God and maintain love for the Guru in your mind. When you have love for the Guru, love for God in your mind while you're doing Seva, then you're not really looking for greatness. You're saying you're doing this because Guru Sahib wants you to do this. And looking for recognition from Guru Sahib, maybe in initial stages, you really want recognition and you want Guru Sahib to recognize you, that's fine. But as long as you keep doing it, you will reach a point where it becomes second nature and you don't need that recognition anymore. Asa vich niras valai. Amid hopes and desires, you remain detached and content. So that, Bhai Gurdas is not saying that you should not go for possessions. Guru Gobind Singh Ji had a big darbar and he had lots of possessions, but do not be attached to those possessions. So when I mentioned earlier about ego, yes, there's nothing wrong with having a house, nothing wrong with having a car, but don't be attached to them. There's nothing wrong with being a doctor, an engineer, or a janitor. Doesn't matter who you are, as long as you're doing your job to the best of your ability, and you're serving people in one form or another, and your job is towards getting meaning in your life. That's when it's important to, that's what's important. not following your ego. So I'm going to conclude with what are the virtues that we need to inculcate. Manas ki jaat sab hai, ek hai pehchan wo. Recognize all people as one. Don't make any judgments. And it's not only about people. Guru Hari Ji's example talks about animals, about plants, all of God's creation. Be content with all of God's creation and help all of God's creation. Sincerity, honesty is the next virtue. We need to be sincere in our whatever we are doing. If we do it coming from sincerity and honesty, that's when we will reach a higher state of being. Moreover, you'll be connected to the spiritual aspect of who you are. Be gentle and kind towards each other, to everybody. See, Seva is not about, as I mentioned earlier, going somewhere and doing something that is defined as Seva. Being kind to your neighbor, being kind to somebody next to you, being kind to the beggar on the street, that's Seva. So you're living a life of Seva. It's about how you conduct your life on a day-to-day basis. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is, if anything that you get from this lecture, it's about start living the life that starts with Amrit Vela. Start your day first with gratitude. So you pray to Akal Purkh. You do your nitname. And why do we do a nitname? Why did Guru Sahib give us nitname? Because nitname helps to calm our mind. Meditate and it helps to remind us what are some of the virtues that we need to inculcate in ourselves. Jap Sahib is all about the attributes of Akal Purkh. And if we start inculcating all those attributes in us, imagine what life would be like. Our life will have meaning. We will not be focusing on possessions. They will be there. When you do your job, you earn an honest living. Yes, you can buy the things that are necessary for your survival. And even more than that, for luxury as well. That's fine. But are you engrossed in those? So start the day with gratitude towards Akal Purkh, doing meditation to help do seva of Akal Purkh so that you can control your ego. Do something for someone every day. Make it a habit that every day, at the end of the day, you ask yourself, did I do something for somebody today? Have I done some seva of somebody today? Simple thing. One simple act, right? Keep writing things down at the end of the day. One thing I've found is that people who are very successful, they do keep like a journal. So they can learn from themselves, learn about what they have experienced during the day. I don't do it myself, I'm preaching, but I'm not doing it myself. But if you start doing it, I start doing it and journaling, what have I done? See, we all focus on negative things. What didn't I do right? Oh, I should have done this better, I should have done that better. We don't focus on the things that we do right. We don't focus on our successes. And success, one of the successes, who did I help today? What little thing did I do that was not for myself, it was for somebody else? That's all what seva is. If you're doing something for yourself versus doing something for somebody else. If you're doing it for somebody else, that's seva. And if you don't, ask for anything in return. And it doesn't matter what you do. The main point is to replace attention to yourself by paying attention to something or someone else. So, what happens at the end? We talked about earlier, I began with questions. Who wants to be happy? Who wants to be content? If you really want happiness, then this is the way that Guru Sahib has taught us, to doing seva of Akal Purkh, seva of humanity. That will give us more contentment inside. That will give us our spirit to be happy. Our life will have meaning. Our life will have purpose. And we will be above the suffering that is encompassing all of humanity. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.